If you want licensing to become a big deal in your organization, then you need to make it a big deal as a leader. If you want licensing to become everyday language, then you need to be talking about licensing every single day. If you want to scale your income passively, this is the message for you. This is the training for you because it transformed my career and I know it can transform yours as well. And it's the subject of licensing. Today, we're going to talk about increasing your licensing ratio, why it's so important, why it's imperative, and why it's the true measure of how fast you get from where you are to actually becoming financially free. And so I want to give you a story and I want to break down some numbers. And then I'm going to give you some tips that you can actually implement to increase your licensing ratio. So years ago, I remember I was up in Bear Valley, which is in Northern California, and I'm at a leadership retreat. And there was somebody that started in the industry at the same time as me, and they were crushing it. They were absolutely crushing it. And I asked them and said, hey, listen, we've been in the same amount of time. We've added the same amount of agents to our agency, yet you are 5 times further ahead financially than I am. What's going on? And he simply looks at me and goes, Matthew, what's your licensing ratio? And I looked at him and I said, well, what's a licensing ratio? And how do I calculate that? He then broke down the math for me and explained that every licensed agent will produce a certain amount of revenue on an annual basis. And so if you improve your licensing ratio, you improve your annual revenue. And if you improve your annual revenue, you then improve your cash flow. And so as we looked into the numbers, we saw that, oh my goodness, my licensing ratio was 6%, which means that if I recruited 100 people, only 6 of them got a license. And here's the deal. If you have the opportunity to recruit already licensed agents, that speeds up the process and simplifies the process as well. But I'm talking about recruiting people that are not yet licensed. So based off a 6% licensing ratio, that means that if I recruit 100 people, only 6 of them got a license. Think about the work, think about the effort, think about how much time, energy, the financial commitments, think about how much revenue was lost simply because I was unaware of a metric and I was unaware of how important that metric is. And I know you might think to yourself, licensing, shouldn't that be common sense? It probably should be, but it was never talked about. And after years of being in the industry, I had never heard of it before. And when I did, it captured my attention. It drew me in and was one of the things that led to me going at that time from $250,000 a year to a $2 million a year in less than 18 months. It was because I cracked the code on licensing. So what I want to do right now is I just want to break down some math for you so you can see how big of a deal this actually makes in your business. So let's break this down. Let's say I'm recruiting 100 people a month for simplicity. I recruit 100 people per month into my agency every single month. If I'm at a 6% licensing ratio, 100 times 6% is 6 new licenses. And let's say our average licensed agent produces 100,000 in revenue every single year, 100,000 in target premium, 100,000 points, 100,000 in annual premium, whatever you want to call it. But let's just say our average licensed agent generates 100,000 in sales per year. That means that if I add 6 licensed agents and the average agent does 100,000 a year in revenue, that means that I just added 600,000 in revenue over the next 12 months. If I do that on a monthly basis, after 12 months, I should have a business that's doing $7.2 million per year. But think about that. That means I have to recruit 100 people to get 6. That's horrible. And so we got aggressive about improving this. And we grew our licensing ratio from 6% to 35%, meaning that we are licensing an extra 29 people for every 100 recruits. So now let's look at the difference. At a 6% licensing ratio, that's $7.2 million a year in revenue. By upping it to 35, now that's 35 new licenses at 100,000 in revenue per licensed agent. That's an extra $3.5 million that I can expect over the next 12 months, okay? If I do this on a monthly basis, that means that after 12 months, I have a business that's doing 42 million in revenue per year. 42 million. And all I did was up my licensing ratio from 6% to 35%. Now let's do the difference. So 42 million minus 7.2 million. That means that by upping my licensing ratio 29%, I grew my annual revenue by 35 million. 35 million. And you can run the overrides, you can run the spreads, you can run all those numbers however you'd like. But all I know is that when I heard this, my stomach dropped, my mouth dropped, and I said, I need to go aggressively focus on improving my licensing ratio. And that's exactly what I did. So what I want to do is I want to give you 10 points that could help you improve your licensing ratio. 10 things that I did that transformed our licensing ratio, took us from 6% to 35%, and something that allowed us to scale our income significantly. Here's the deal. Anybody can make money. The question is can we help you become profitable regardless of whether or not you show up? That comes down to the size of your licensed and trained field force, and that's why this is so important. So let's talk about it. Point number 1, licensing should be in any and all conversations. Every conversation that you have, there should be some sort of discussion about life insurance. I could be talking to you about this part of the business, this part of the business, or this part of the business. But I need to make licensing common language and common knowledge in every interaction that I have with somebody. So I can talk to somebody about the promotion. Man, how's your promotion going? Where are you at? Awesome. Hey, just curious, how many people do you have going through licensing this month? How many people have already passed their exam this month? How many people got contracted this month? Every single conversation, there should be discussion about licensing. And if that's the case, it's on people's minds. Whatever people think about, they move towards. So if you're talking about it, they're thinking about it. If they're thinking about it, they're growing it. If they're growing it, your business is scaling. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, make sure that all of those in a leadership role are fully equipped when it comes to how to get somebody licensed, the importance of it, and also the process. So let me explain. As a leader, I can't work with every single person in our organization, which means that I have to rely on layers of leadership that have the knowledge, that have the expertise, and I need to hope and or work towards making sure that we're all marching to the same beat, talking about the same things, having the same discussions, and are fully capable and aware of what to actually do in order to get people licensed. So if you want to scale your licensing, anyone you have in a leadership role, anybody that's meeting with someone that's not yet licensed should be fully equipped and fully aware of what the process looks like, why it's so important, and they should understand the strategy behind growing it. Point number 3, strong licensing support staff. Strong licensing support staff. This is so important. As I was coming up in entrepreneurship, I did my best to invest in my business, but I come from a family that didn't have a lot financially. We were rich in love, but financially, things were always a little bit tight. And so because of that, we were very, very frugal. And when I started making money, any money at all, it was nerve-wracking for me to invest any money back into my business, because when you've never had something, you tend to hold on to it. And so because I never had money, when I got even a little bit of it, I would hoard it, even though that if I invested it, it would lead to a greater rate of return. And so when I finally broke that poverty-stricken way of thinking, and I said, you know what, I'm going to invest in my business in order to scale. I'm going to hire support staff. Our licensing went through the roof. It absolutely went through the roof, and everything exploded because of it. So it's very important that you have staff in place where your agents know there's always someone to call at any point in time. They can have their hand held all the way through the licensing process. If you are relying on people to just figure it out, they're not going to. I remember I came into the life insurance industry. They handed me a piece of paper with all the instructions to get licensed. They said, go get licensed. And so guess what? That's what I did. There was nobody holding my hand. There was nobody encouraging me to go quick. There was nobody creating urgency. Nobody. And I still got it done quick, but I would like to think that I'm not like everyone else, the same way I would like to think you're not like everyone else. You're an achiever. That's why you're listening to this. But most people, they need to have their hand held, and they need somebody to walk them through the entire process. If you don't have licensing support staff that are encouraging people, motivating people, holding their hand, making sure no step goes miss, and making sure that people do this in a timely manner, if you don't have that, it's costing you a lot. It's called opportunity cost. It's costing you a lot. And if you put those things in place, your licensing will scale. That's point number 3. Point number 4, make it a part of your weekly announcements. Most likely if you are leading a team, you do a weekly call, whether it's an accountability call, whether it's a training, whatever it might be. Once a week minimum, you are most likely gathering with your team and or those you are leading. You should have this in your announcements. Licensing should be something that you discuss, and licensing should be something that you talk about in every single meeting. Point number 5, recognize it. Recognize it. Not just when people get contracted, but also when people pass. We need to recognize people passing their exam and how big of a deal that is. And we need to recognize people getting contracted and how big of a deal that is. Whatever you want more of, recognize it. One of the things that I used to do, I used to only recognize when people passed. The problem is they still need to apply for it. They still need to get contracted, and they're not in a position where they can yet make money when they pass. So what I realized is that I got to recognize both. I got to recognize people passing their exam, and I have to recognize people getting contracted. And if I recognize both of those things, I make a big deal out of it. I do recognition on my calls on a weekly basis. I'm doing flyers in all of our group chats, and I'm celebrating every person that gets licensed and contracted. This leads to more eyes seeing it. The more I see it, the more people work to go duplicate what they just saw. So if you want to grow licensing, make sure that you recognize it. Sixth thing that will help you with your licensing is licensing classes. Licensing classes. One of the things that we built into our organization is a licensing class that happens every single day, twice a day at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. And we do these licensing classes to make sure that we get people into their pre-licensing courses. We teach them how to study. We go over what the steps are. We want to make sure that they have extreme levels of clarity on what to do next. And this is also when they have the first introduction to somebody holding their hand all the way through the process. We do this on a daily basis, twice a day, because we want to make sure that if we recruit 5 people today, they can go to the licensing class this afternoon. If we recruit 5 people this afternoon, they can go to the licensing class tomorrow morning. We want to make sure that we have a lot of opportunity for people to get licensed. And if for some reason somebody cannot make the class, we will set up a one-on-one and we will do a one-on-one licensing orientation with them. But these classes were a game changer. Number 7, a non-licensed agent group chat. A group chat that is designed for everyone that is going through licensing, but not yet licensed. This gives people the chance to study together. This gives people the chance to ask questions. This gives people the chance to have a graduating class where all of a sudden I'm Agent A, there's Agent B, we're in the same class together. I see Agent B pass and get out of that non-licensed chat. What does that make me want to do? It makes me want to pass as well. So it helps with getting questions answered. It helps with study groups. It helps with more people going through it together. And it's made a massive difference in our business. Point number 8, make sure people pass fast. Make sure people pass fast. We tell everyone that onboards with our firm that our average agent passes the exam in less than 7 days. In less than 7 days. Worst case scenario, we tell them 10. Why? Because if we tell everyone passes in less than 7 days, worst case scenario, they do it in 10. Because we've made that the standard, it becomes the standard. If you give people the ability to take 3, 4, 5 weeks to get a license, trust me, they will go take 3, 4, 5 weeks to get a license. You need to put a standard on it out the gate so that way people come in expecting to get licensed quickly and not take their time doing it. Very crucial, very important. Point number 9, make sure you recognize people getting paid. This is very important. I know you probably do this already, but I don't think you understand how big of a difference it actually makes when it comes to people getting licensed. If you have all of these unlicensed agents, seeing a whole bunch of licensed agents getting paid big money all the time, what do you think that makes all the unlicensed agents want to do? It makes them want to go get licensed because they want to earn that same level of income. This is why every single time somebody gets paid, you should be recognizing it, celebrating it, so that way it makes everyone else want to go get paid as well. And once again, that will lead to more people getting licensed. And then last but not least, point number 10, drive it as the leader. As a leader, whatever you talk about, people think about. Whatever they think about, they move towards. Whatever they move towards, they will succeed at and or get results in. So if you want licensing to become a big deal in your organization, then you need to make it a big deal as a leader. If you want licensing to become everyday language, then you need to be talking about licensing every single day. When I made licensing a strict part of my daily communication, a strict part of my daily trainings, a strict part of everything that I do, and I talk about it nonstop 24/7, our licensing ratios went up. The amount of people that we had get licensed went through the roof. Our production spiked, our revenue spiked, which ultimately means that my cash flow went up also, which we saw that also. So my whole point is licensing is the name of the game. You improve this, you improve this ratio, everything shifts, everything improves, your income scales and things get better. And so guys, if you learned something from today, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. We put out all this content because we want to make a difference. And if there's anyone you know that would benefit from this information, please make sure that you tell them about it. Thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Let's get it. 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 Yeah.